Good evening and welcome to a special edition of ManGuard Rovers live here on deadline day.
Bonjour.
So forget all about the
Hello.
weekend's action for now. We'll come on to that in a later episode, which you'll probably see tomorrow. But for now, I want to talk about all the highs and all the lows of a dramatic deadline day where we've seen potentially a British transfer record broken today. Um, so yeah, let's get into that. My name's Sean. I'm joined here again with Phil and Nathan, and
How do?
Hello.
let's get straight
Good.
into it. So Isak, the saga's finally over. £124
Finally.
million pound.
Got his wage, didn't he?
Are you happy with that? Are you happy with that, Sean? You were very, very, very adamant at the start of the summer when I mocked you for this. This transfer was never, ever, ever going to happen. You could put it in part that you told me. So, how do you feel?
Do you know what? I'm glad it's over. I'm happy to see him move on now. Our season begins now. I think it's been awful, hasn't it? It's been embarrassing. From Isak's perspective, and as Newcastle fan, it's just gone on far too long. I think the club have handled it poorly. I think Isak's not shown a great side of himself there. Good luck, Liverpool fans, with that one. Who knows? 2 years, a bid comes in from Real Madrid. You might find yourselves in the same situation. You know.
When you say, Sean, that the club have handled it poorly, from what perspective have they handled it poorly?
I think it didn't need to be as public as it was. I think the way it's been handled, so public, is it's just brought a bad light into the club.
I don't see what I don't see what the club have done. I don't. Again, this is from a neutral perspective. I don't see what the club have done too much wrong. He's asked to leave. They've said it's we want you to stay. He's sulked about it, and they've gave in. But again, I don't know sort of the ins and outs of it. But have they acted that badly that worse than what Isaac has, or are they both as bad as each other?
Let's face it, nothing at Newcastle transfer-wise has been great since Amanda Staveley and that lot disappeared. With no sporting director coming in controlling that. Eddie Howe's doing a lot of the transfer business on his own, apparently. So the fact that we haven't had a sporting director or football director has probably hindered some of them conversations that have happened. We know that Isak was in talks earlier on last year for a new contract, but obviously a change in the ownership and the directors, them talks got forgotten about. Mitchell left again. There was talk of a new deal with Isak, so potentially it might not have played out the way it did if we'd have got us shit sorted out internally.
It's just brought bad publicity to the club, hasn't it, that you don't need at this time.
I think they've just come across as a bit weak, if I'm honest. Like our good old Queen in the day, didn't it? It's that old never complain, never explain. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see. We all expect footballers to act like children. They're over coddled babies, aren't they? But like clubs are meant to set a tone, and like obviously the owner was over the week when you played Liverpool, and I remember Sky Sports were saying that he'd been to Isak's house to try and convince him to stay. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you go run into an employee's house to ask them not to leave? Like, surely you would ring him up and go, get your ass into work tomorrow and we'll talk about your contract. You know what I mean? It just looks a bit weak to go chase after
like
him,
that,
begging him to stay. And I think, like, to your point about in public, absolutely, again, we all expect agents and football players to be kids, but I don't see why the club put that statement out. When Isak put social, you're almost getting dragged into tit for tat. And like, look, why would you respond? Why would you give him even more clicks and even more trends by responding when you could have just kept a dignified silence? Literally rung him on, get your ass into work tomorrow. You don't share shit on social media. You find a week's wait, whatever we're going to find you, and you won't be posting this again. Or better yet, because they could have just warned him, couldn't they? Look, you post anything else on social media, just to be clear, it's gross misconduct from this point forward. And then if he'd done it, they could have cancelled his contract and sacked him without needing to pay him anything. So, like, it just feels like they got a bit dragged into the antics, which it's easy to do in the bubble that's football, isn't it? But I think, like you say, it's we've seen a lot of high-profile nonsense from various players over the years, haven't we? And kind of this moment, so you just feel like, I'm just glad to be out of it. Like, just.
But we go to the one end. You've got a player coming in, Visser, who's close, I believe. He did very similar at Brentford, didn't he? Went on strike, sort of moaned, released a statement. He's forced his way to to Newcastle, which is the move. I know obviously it's not done yet, but it should be close. So, but just to Phil's point, is this is the times that we're in at the minute. You've got players and agents that seem to be pulling all the strings. When a player wants out, more than likely, you don't see the clubs anymore doing what Phil's saying no, you're going to do this. They sort of give in because they don't want an unhappy player in the ranks upsetting the apple cart. It's sad to see, but it's the times we live in, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but at this minute now, it makes it even easier for a player. They can just say they're unhappy. The agent makes a bit of noise, and then all of a sudden, bang, they've gone. So that contracts are worth nothing, really, are they?
I think part of the problem is, I think one of the reasons clubs get dragged into it is the finances, right? You can't afford to pay a player who's on as much as he's on if he's not playing. But that comes back to our old friend, and I won't drag the show off onto it, but that comes back to our old friend of PSR, doesn't it? Because the reality is, if any club in the world should have been able to stick strong and make him literally twiddle his thumbs in the reserve squad for 100,000 years if they wanted to, it's Newcastle. And Knicks have got all the money in the world, but because of PSR, they can't afford him on the wage bill when he's not playing. Like, why does the club care to ruin his career? It doesn't matter to them, does it? Like, they should have stuck. They could have stuck strong. It's a money thing, isn't it? Clubs can't afford to be paying £200,000 or £150,000 a week to a player who's not playing because it ruins PSR, doesn't it, from a wage bill perspective?
I mean, to be fair, I won't mind touching on PSR later on in the episode before we call it a night tonight, before we just be a bit like, yeah. I mean, the money involved this transfer window as a whole is just.
Do you think you've got good money for Isak, Sean, or do you think he's been undersold, or do you think it's around about was it about 125, 30 million, something like that?
I don't think we'd have got any more for him. I think
it's a fair price.
I think that is still a fair price. To be fair, I mean, like Phil's touched on it before in the previous show where we've talked about Isak's actual stats, and
I'll be honest, I think you've robbed them blind. Genuinely,
as a Newcastle fan,
one good season, one breakthrough season, and suddenly you're flogging for what, twice or three times what you paid for him? Like, they put up a stat on Sky Sports last week of I don't know, I don't play FIFA, but I assume it's like the maps you look at when you look at players on FIFA. And Ekitike had better scores on everything than Isak. So you're like, right, so it can't be stats based because Isak's stats aren't as good as Ekitike. He's only paid 80 million. I say only 80 million for Ekitike, and Isak's had one good season. And even then, we debated last season. I know we weren't on live, but we debated last season. I thought he missed way too many chances as it was anyway. I thought he was a beneficiary of the fact Newcastle created so many flipping chances for him. Like, I don't think anyone could have missed it of that many chances. So I think you've pulled a blinder, to be fair, particularly if you managed to pick up this lanky lad and Wisser for less money than you sold him for.
That was going to bring you on to my next question, Phil. Like this lad who's coming on from the German club, I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about him. He's quite highly rated, but again, Sean, are you happy with that as sort of Isak's replacement, or do you think they've rushed into a signing where you've gone, he's available, let's just take him?
Yeah, I mean, I've read a few snippets this evening that some of the German press have come out and said that we've overpriced for him, we've overpaid for him slightly. So I don't know. I guess we'll see how it fares.
Is this the same German press? Is this the same German press who rated Benjamin Sesko, who was too scared to take a penalty before number 10 against Grimsby? Is that same German press?
Possibly, yeah. But again,
was that
on Wednesday's episode, Man United will be getting a bashing about the other night. So again, we'll save that for later. Because Sesko is a whole different. We could talk about him all night. I think we've got enough stuff. But yeah, I mean, he's 6'7". He's a big lad. He's strong. He can hold the ball up well, which is something I think we've really been missing in that area. Is hold up play. Isak was good at it, and we've definitely missed that. Gordon is a different type of player, so the impact we've had in Gordon up front, it's not been a benefit. Also,
you add that striker. I mean, the last 3 games I've watched with Newcastle, you can just see that as good as your attacking players are, that focal point of that striker you've missed badly. And I think, if you'd have had that, I know you had that young lad Asula, but an experienced striker, I think it's just one of those where I think he will bring some much needed some confidence into the front line. Visser, I think, is going to be a very good signing as well. If you go by his stats of what he's done at Brentford, hopefully he can fit straight in.
And he's got a similar sort of spine coming in from the right with Alanga. So him and Alanga pairing up could be quite a good partnership on the right side for us. And obviously, I think he's 6'7". He's a presence. You know, whenever Dan Burns up there for a corner, it's a massive presence for us in them sort of set play situations. So having a striker there as well as Dan Burn, I fully expect us to do some work on the set pieces. And obviously Wissa is proven in the Premier League. He's scored 20 odd goals.
20 goals, yeah, 20 goals
So
last season.
we know we can fight back at the Premier League. So having him, I'm happy with that. I do think we probably paid 10 million too much for him, but at the end of the day, it was either go this
But you've
window.
got cash in your pocket, though, haven't you?
Yeah,
You've got cash in your pocket.
End
exactly.
of the window, they dictate the price, so that's how it always happens, isn't it? And then obviously you signed Jacob Ramsey from us as well. I know he only played one game, but you know the Newcastle fans are, you should be excited because I think
He looks good. He's quite electric when he's on the ball. You can see that he's out to impress and he wants to obviously fight for his place in the team, which is good to see. So it's good to have some competition again. It's an upgrade on Longstaff, I think. Although Longstaff, we'll come into it in tomorrow's episode, Wednesday's episode, but Longstaff, he'll be missed. So it's a good replacement for him, I think. So overall, and we got Chow as well, the German defender. You know, it's not been too bad of a window for us.
So you're
Myself, Phil.
Me?
Thoughts?
I am. Oh, can I swear on YouTube? I don't know. I am. I better not. Actually, my kids might be watching. I'm dancing. Me. I think we have had pretty much perfect window. To be fair, if you look at everybody, I know all you Arsenal commentators out there love to tell me we should have signed a striker, but you know we've done that. We've got the striker. I think it's just been a brilliant win.
He scored, hasn't he? That's the main thing.
He scored, and he's not fit yet. You know, so and I think he looks like he'll be absolutely fine, because I think when you look at, there's a few people online saying he's a flat track bully and all the rest of it, but actually when you look at where we dropped points last season, we didn't drop points against the top teams, we dropped points against the teams that we should have absolutely smashed, and we ended up like drawing or dropping to a goal. I think, you know, everything in the window, to be honest, has been about, I think we touched on it a couple of Monday night shows before, has been about moving from being a team to being a squad, you know, and I think the depth, we brought quality in Zubimendi, Eze, Gyökeres. I think we've brought squad depth in Madueke, Mosquera, Kepa. And I don't know much about the new lad from Leverkusen, to be honest. But
he's just signed, hasn't he? I believe. Is it along with an option to buy? But he's
to buy. And I've seen a few of his videos now, and he looks like he's a very progressive left back. But the thing that slightly spins me on it, I'm not gonna. You know, I think someone did a mock up the other day. I think we could field a full 11 of defenders if we wanted at this point into first team defenders at this point in time, which is just bloody crazy. Their depth, and then they're just ridiculous because, you know, and I know, I'll come on to a separate show, but like, I don't think we've got weaknesses in defence particularly. So, but no, I think the, you know, the window has been absolutely phenomenal for us. I think the fact that
you've been backed, hasn't he? You've the board have backed Arteta this season, where they've gone, right, this is what you need, this is what we're going to give you. Obviously, the signing of Gyökeres, big money, Eze, big money, Madueke, you know, like, we've spent a decent amount of money, but you've been backed. But I think it's been needed. I've said this to you before, Phil. I think obviously last season you admitted yourself your squad depth wasn't the greatest, whereas you look now like you've got a lot more depth now.
You look at and like I said, we'll come on to it more on the next show, but like, you look at what happened at the weekend. You've got Havertz out injured, Saka out injured, Odegaard out injured. You know, last season that would have been absolutely devastating for us as a team, and we walked into Anfield with no one batting an eyelid that any of them were injured. Do you know what I mean? So that says everything now about squad depth. And you look at the bench on Sunday, and it was just like a who's who of game changers. You know, Eze, Dauman, Odegaard. You know, it just. Now Ranieri, you know, you just got Trossard, you've got 5 game changers on the bench who could actually change the game positively. Whereas last season you looked at the bench, you're just like, who the hell? You're just like, what use is that for us to switch the game up? We always looked weak when we substituted last season. Whereas we're now at a point where you actually think, do you know what, we're going to be stronger. You're actually baying at Arteta to get the substitutes on because you think it's going to actually strengthen your attack and push you forward. So they've built a squad. Do you know what? And to be honest, you know, yeah, Liverpool have spent some scandalous amount of money, which I just find amusing, bearing in mind how much Liverpool fans complain about oil money spoiling football. But you know, they've spent what, 450 million. I look at the players we bought for the price we bought them for versus the players they bought for the price they bought them for. I think we've had a miles better window than they have. Like we've spent smarter. We bought, Norgard from Brentford was just unbelievable. How do you pick? And again, without drifting on to Wednesday's show, I don't know if you two saw the Arsenal match at the weekend, but obviously Saliba came off injured after 5 minutes, and Mosquera had to come on. And I'll be honest, if you hadn't known, you wouldn't have known Saliba wasn't playing. Like, how the hell we picked that defender up for 15 million quid or 13 million quid, whatever ridiculously short, 13 million, I think, from Valencia. He just looks like an absolute machine. And 13 million, one absolute. Andrea Berta, just take me off to him. Unbelievable. He is the signing of our season already.
I've got some breaking news.
Oh dear.
Related to Arsenal.
Oh, they've not sold Berta, have we?
Zinchenko signed Forest on loan.
Forest? Oh, I knew. That's good for everybody, to be fair. Wish him well. He was part of the journey to start turning everybody around. So I knew we were looking to try and shift him on a loan. Today, and that's the thing for us, isn't it? Today's been a lot of outs, like getting rid of those fringe players, like Fabio Vieira, Reece Nelson, people like that. We're trying to shift them all out, and Kiwior's gone.
Has he gone to Fulham, Nelson? I think.
Talking to Fulham, yeah. So,
but you did make the point though, Phil, where you're saying that even though for the squad depth you do have sort of these fringe players that are capable of playing for other Premier League clubs that just can't. They're not going to start at Arsenal, and they maybe not even be first choice to come off the bench now that you've got the depth. So maybe it is a good move for people like Zinchenko, Nelson, as the people like you've just mentioned. So it's
fair play to them. They want to play football. You never, for all we just talked about football as playing games and being kids, you never want to begrudge anybody if they want to actually get out there and put their boots on and play.
For Zinchenko, I think where he fits in at Forest. Is a different.
He's done his job for us. He's what? Well, now if you consider like that lad from Leverkusen, Hincapié, like he's all left. Like he doesn't deserve to be fourth choice, whatever he is. You know what I mean? He deserves to go to Forest and play, or certainly be substitute on Forest. Depending on their. Is it Aina who plays left back for them, or he play right back? But it's a good move for him, and he's done his job for us. He was part of that revolution of changing us from being, happy with being mid-table to actually now we're pissed off to finish second. So. That mentality shift for Arsenal was huge when him and Jesus came in. So, I'll never begrudge either of them to anything because they're a massive part of Arteta turning the ship around. So, no, best transfer window for absolutely ages. Andrea Berta earned his money. He needs to go and take a nice 10 months off, except he can't because there's a January transfer window. But he needs to go and put his feet up somewhere and have a rest because fair play to the man. He's pulled a blinder. Absolute blinder. So, I'm happy.
Well... Where do I start being an Aston Villa fan? It's been a very, very turbulent transfer window for Villa. Obviously, that we've been massively restricted by PSR. We've had to get rid of a lot of dead wood, as it were, or players that wanted out on massive wages. And I think, looking on the message boards on the social media, I do think maybe the management team's coming for a bit of criticism unfairly, in my opinion, because, when you've got restraints around you, you can only work with what you've got. And that's what we seem to have done. Now, obviously, we wasn't happy that the fact that we had to sell Jacob Ramsey, PSR, meaning we are having to sell, arguably one of the better players in our squad. But we've got him out of the way now. Leon Bailey went to Roma. Villa fans, if any were watching, that Leon Bailey was very hot and cold. He had one good season, in my opinion. The season we did actually, when we played in the Conference League, he was very good that season. But he got injured. He couldn't reignite it. So he's gone to Roma, trained on his first day and got injured for 3 weeks. So does that tell you about Leon Bailey? So, yeah, having to shift that. There's obviously been the old debacle of Emi Martinez. Last game of the season, he's in floods of tears at Villa Park, everyone thinking he's going. He's not going. Then I think, and again, we'll discuss this on the next show, but obviously the Man United keeper had an absolute stinker against Grimsby, which I then think's forced the hand for Man United to go into the market for a goalkeeper. Again, depending on what journalist you want to listen to, Martinez says he only wanted Man United. He didn't want anyone else. But for our sources, no one put a bid in for him. So he's still a Villa player. We still have to acknowledge the fact that he probably will still be number one because of his experience. but it's not gone down. It's not gone down well with a lot of Villa fans on social media. Emi Martinez sort of pulling this stunt.
How's it gone down with you, Nate, as a Villa fan? Forget social media. You as a Villa fan out. So if you,
I'm disappointed.
When he starts you after international break, have you forgotten all about it, or?
I think if he comes back in and he settles himself back in properly, which I know he will because he's the ultimate professional, I think it'll sort of not slip people's minds, but it's like sort of let sleeping dogs lie, as it were. I don't think that the goalkeeper who played yesterday is good enough to be our number one, in my opinion. That Marco Bizzo. He's a decent number two. He come in when you need him to, but ultimately Martinez is going to be our number one at least until January, unless a deal for Saudi is going to be done, because their window doesn't close until the 10th or the 11th. But the problem you've got there is if we sell, we can't buy now. So we're not going to leave ourselves without a keeper. So I genuinely don't think that he's at Villa now until at least January. And then obviously the unconfirmed deals, which are still going through. Jadon Sancho from Man United. We're paying a massive chunk of his wages. It's a risk, but so was Marcus Rashford last season. Again, I'll maintain this. If there is, there's not many managers that can get the best out of players. There's only a few probably in the league, and I think Emery is one of them. So looking at Jadon Sancho coming, I see it as a positive. He didn't do too bad with Chelsea last year, did he? He wasn't horrific. He didn't set the world on fire.
Bloody expensive and not horrific though, isn't he?
It is, but the problem you've got though, Phil, is I was saying this to our face, is that we've had to get players in, or we've had to get some players with sort of experience, and he become available. We've identified him as a player that can come in. I'm just hoping that he can reignite some of the form he had with Borussia Dortmund. But we'll see. It's one of them for me. The one who I am excited about is Harvey Elliott from Liverpool. I think he's a very, very good young player. I think he's the under-21s captain, isn't he?
He's a good player.
He's found game time very limited at Anfield. I've got a friend who's a Liverpool fan. He didn't want him to go, but I think from the perspective of him playing more regular football, he'll fit straight in at Villa. I think what we need him for is his skill and his passing. I think he's very good. He's got that about him, and I think that's an obligation to buy at the end of the season, or I think we will have to pay 35 million.
The pending deals, then. The pending deals. Because I've not watched. To be honest, I've not watched much of Villa this season. But do you think those pending? Because obviously, from what little I've seen on Match of the Day, what little I've read on write-ups and stuff, Villa have looked pretty flat and pretty non-existent for these first few matches.
We've had an absolute horrendous start.
So if let's say these couple of loan signings perform, are they the areas you're lacking in? Is it creative midfield where you've had a problem, or is it the fact you can't put the ball in the net, or where have will these if you get these two and they perform, will they settle your concerns of the first three games as a Villa fan?
I want to say yes and no. That's not really an answer, is it? Because I do believe that we needed at least another striker to sort of go competition with Ollie Watkins. Now, we were linked with that Mawani who's just gone to Spurs, from PSG, which would have been a decent player. But the problem we've got is when you know that you don't have anyone competition behind you, sometimes players can get a little bit complacent, thinking, well, I'm going to start anyway. And I don't believe when Ollie Watkins had that sort of thing with John Duran, you knew that obviously when Watkins come off, you knew that John Duran were capable of getting you a goal, and he often did score a wildy, or he'd get sent off. He was Captain Chaos, we called him at Villa. And we don't have that at the minute, that's the one area that probably does concern me now, because again, I thought obviously after seeing Ollie Watkins in pre-season, he probably would have kicked on a bit more than what he has. I mean, he had a chance yesterday. I don't know if you've seen the game. He did have, he had a chance to. Decent save from Dean Anderson, hit it straight at him. But this is, Ollie Watkins now needs to find his form, and he needs to find it quick. And so does most of the Villa players, if I'm being honest. I mean, without getting into the performances, we'll talk about that on the next show. Again, another one to mention, we did bring in Victor Lindelof as well. Again, I was saying this to a friend, another Villa fan of mine, is my opinion on Victor Lindelof. I don't think he's better than Disasi or Clement Lenglet, who we had previously in these areas, but I don't think he's worse. So again, I think it's it's a player who makes sense because he's on a free transfer. It's a 2-year deal. He's an experienced international. He's played at Man United. Now, some Man United fans might say, if there's any Man United fans watching now, please tell me, were you impressed with Victor Lindelof? Do you think he's a good sign? I didn't see that much of him at Man United. I know when he first signed, he did play a little bit more football than what he did, but then he sort of got pushed out, didn't he? When all these sort of like De Ligt and everyone else and Martinez came, he was sort of put down the pecking order. So it's been a very up and down transfer window. I think the noise around it hasn't been very good. I think Unai Emery is literally, I don't see the guy sort of be short or snap at people many times. But yesterday he was asked about Martinez to the reporter. I don't know if you've seen it, and he wouldn't answer the question. He was quite short with the. He just kept saying Marco Bizzo. So I think the fact that now the transfer window is now shut, maybe we'll start to see some sort of improvement within the team because we know who we've got now. There's been that much noise about people coming and going. I mean, the noise around Morgan Rogers, that didn't go away. A few clubs linked with him. And that's not going to go away. But we've got players in. I think Harvey Elliott's the one for me where I think that's going to be a good signing for us. Sancho remains to be seen. And I think Lindelof he doesn't start in our first 11 unless either it's a cup game or maybe it's in Europe. But I don't see him starting ahead of Konsa, Mings and Torres. He's there as fourth choice centre-back, in my opinion. So, and obviously we did get the goalkeeper who played yesterday as well, which is what we needed. So, very mixed emotions from me transfer-wise. I can't say I'm ecstatic about the business, but I can't say that I'd have been more doom and gloom if we hadn't have bought anyone in today. So
if you'd have not let a couple of those players go, would you have been happier starting with the squad you finished last season with?
Probably. I think we had a very good squad. I mean, despite I think we didn't win for 8 games to the back end of the season, but we still managed to to finish level on points for a Champions League, but we only missed out on goal difference. Semi-final of the FA Cup, obviously quarterfinals of the Champions League with that squad.
So overall, you'd say it's been a poor window then, because actually, if you just kept the squad together, you'd have been happier.
I think we did need some more additions. I did think that some of the players that have gone, someone like Leon Bailey, did need to up his game. Now, again, that remains to be seen if he'd have stayed. I know, obviously, there was another player that we didn't have last season who was on loan at Leverkusen, was Emi Buendia. Mm-hmm. So he came back. I thought he looked a little bit lively last night, but apparently he got Leeds went in for him in today and they rejected the offer, so we need him. Yeah. But like I said, we've got our two central midfielders injured at the minute. So Amadou Onana and Boubacar Kamara both injured. Ross Barkley seems like Darren Anderton, always seems to be injured. Sick note. Yeah. So yeah, I can't say that it's been the best and I can't say it's been the worst, but let's see what Emery can do with these signings. If anyone can get the best out of any of them, like I say, particularly Sancho, like I just mentioned, I think it will be.
Do you think that though? Like, I know you're probably going to say yes, but obviously Emery's had all pre-season. He's had all the training ground time. He's into year 3 now, 4 now. And they've looked really bad in the first 3 games. So when you say he's great at bringing the best out of players.
I do genuinely believe that, and we've said this as amongst the other fans, is that I still believe that the players were still pissed off and still sulking about the fact that Jacob Ramsey went. And I know that's the football players. They need to get their act together very quickly. Now, the problem we've had is that we don't seem to be kicked on from the end of last season where we put in a lot of flat performances. I know the players are capable of so much more, but it is down to Unai Emery now to get the best out of the players. I do think he can. I think the international break did come at a good time for Villa. I know for some clubs it doesn't. It can be a hindrance. I think this is good now. We've regrouped, or we can regroup. I know a lot of the players will be going on international duty, but we will be able to sort of regroup as a squad, sit down and say, right, this is the squad now. We know who's here. Next game now, don't get any easier. Obviously, we've got Everton away. You're going to put your mortgage on Jack Grealish having an absolute blinder against us.
Oh, Jack back, yeah. Oh, he's gonna have some fun.
So yeah, so we've got to go to Everton now and look at it and win that, and then I believe Sunderland's the game after that. So we've got to pick up some points, and we've got to start scoring goals. The fact that Ollie Watkins, well, not just Ollie Watkins, but we haven't scored any goals this season. I'm not saying it's worrying, but we should have at least had a couple by now. So, but
Yeah.
like I said, I'm still optimistic as a Villa fan. I'm still a glass half full rather than half empty. So we'll see. Just come up on my phone, Sean. Alexander Isak now confirmed to Liverpool. So
Yeah,
rubber
I've
stamp.
also seen that the Worcester deal's also been confirmed. So
Tell you what, I need to change my job, because I remember mocking you in May saying that Isak was going to Liverpool, and you were adamant I was wrong. So I reckon I'm calling a beat Fabrizio Romano on that one. Said he was gone, going, finished.
So it's one of them, isn't it? We'll go back to Isak. We'll see where he fits into this Liverpool team, because obviously the sort of questions asked from a neutral perspective is, where does he fit in after they've just signed Ekitike? Liverpool fans will correct me and say they can play together. Couldn't Ekitike play on the left? Isak can't play on the left, can he?
That's what I saw today. They were talking about that he's likely to bump Gakpo to the bench, and Ekitike goes left, Isak down the middle, and Salah on the right. That's quite a front three, to be fair. Because mind you, Ekitike's looked really good since he's come in, But I will get in there that Mosquera had him in his pocket all day yesterday, to be fair. So he didn't do much against us, but he's looked good against them weak defences like Newcastle. He looked really good against them.
We'll
that's good again there, didn't you?
It had to be done.
As if you're a Liverpool supporter now, again, just with spreading that front three, the pressure's going to be on them to deliver now, because the Liverpool fans will be expecting goals, won't they, from this front three? We know Salah can deliver. We know what he's about. We know Isak can deliver goals, but does he do it at Liverpool? Does he play the same system?
They've got some massive. I mean, they've had a wonderful start to the season, and we've talked about it before about like they've got a lot of new players and obviously got to bed them in. But I'll be honest, I just think they've overpaid for all of them. I think Kirkes was too much money. Isak was too much money. Ekitike, even though he started well, when you look at what other people have bought for 65, 70 million, he's probably 15, 20 million more expensive than he should have been. Florian Wirtz is just unbelievable. How on earth you can pay more than about 20 million quid for him looking at his performances? But let's say he's going to bounce up a little bit and call him 50. I still reckon you'd have wanted with smart business if you're Liverpool. And I know they want to do business quickly, but leave the players where they are. You could have shorn at least 100 million quid off of that bill, I think. When you look at the quality of players, I just think you look at the quality. I mean, and we've touched on like obviously the Premier League have smashed their spending record again. I think they almost smashed it just between City, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool. To be honest,
but we've seen all these players come into the Premier League now, but
the money's crazy.
It's crazy money.
You're getting players who are just not like with the best in the world. Let's take some of the players we talked about tonight. I'd take Arsenal rather than pick on you two. Madueke came worth 55 million. He looked great against Liverpool yesterday. He ain't £55 million player. Elanga's not a £56 million player. Who else can we think? Well, like I said, Wirtz is no way he should be 105, 110 million. It's just absolute. Players have one good season, and clubs are just tripping over themselves to chuck 6 figures at people. It just 7 figures at people. It's just absolutely mental. And you look at some of the performances, and you go in, and I get the whole form is temporary, class is permanent. So I guess we'll know more in 15 or 20 games time, won't we? But and that's down to the managers, like you said, Nate, to get the best out of the players. But you look at someone coming in, and as I take Gyökeres as well, Gyökeres ain't fit. Gyökeres doesn't look like a 55, 60 million pound striker at the minute. But then you look at the other players, you look at some other players, and I'll stick it to my team to talk about. I'm like, like Zubimendi looks like an absolute freaking steal for 51 million. Like when you look at what we paid for Declan Rice, and I absolutely love Declan Rice, but you think Zubimendi is less than half the price, and he's coming and he's hit the ground flying. That's that English tax again, isn't it? And it is a crazy, crazy window. You look at like today. I mean, how many deals have been done today?
I think what I've seen, what I've noticed from the trend is a lot of money's been spent more on sort of the attackers than it has been maybe defenders. Again, we'll go like Man United, what they spent on their front three. You know, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and more shit spending in it, to be fair, because by the sounds of it, the manager doesn't fancy Sesko. Cunha's injured, and Mbeumo, you know, again, one good season for Brentford. He looked solid for Brentford. But like, if you take last season away, you would have said Brian Mbeumo was a solid Premier League player. You wouldn't have said he was a £65 million starting Man United frontline player, would you? Like, you just wouldn't. But one good season, and suddenly 65, 70 million quid chucked at him, and suddenly he's elevated to one of the, regardless of where they are in the table, certainly from a stature perspective, one of the biggest clubs in the country. And you're like, why? And you know, I think one of you guys said it to me earlier in the season. If you look at it, you've got they've spent all that money, they've done great with the forward, but actually cut through it. You go, what have you got? You've got an untested German youngster, a Wolves player, and a Brentford player for over 200 million quid. Like, just mental.
It's a lot of money, and the pressure's on Amorim now, isn't it? I mean, he's already under pressure. I mean, I know they had that win against Burnley, and again, we'll talk about this more in the football chat. But you know, they obviously didn't fancy the goalkeeper, Onana, or he's not been fancied for a while. There's a new lad coming in. Again, I was talking again. I've got a couple of friends in a separate group chat who are Man United fans, and you know, they're sort of leaning towards signing Martinez rather than this young, is he Belgian keeper or? Yeah. You know, so there's a 23-year-old keeper who's untested now, who's got to sit behind that shaky Man United defence and sort of. This is why I was saying that Martinez probably, you know, as much as, you know, from a Villa perspective, we didn't want to lose him. From a Man United perspective, it absolutely would have made sense to have that wealth and that experience behind that back line controlling it. Because I believe with a better goalkeeper, you probably could get a bit more organisation out of your defenders.
You can't. Not even in the Premier League, just being a number one. Like, you look at because it stood out to me, because we've all talked about him as a good signing. You know, you look at yesterday and Kelleher's mistake to let Sunderland win in the 90th minute. You know, he should have saved that. He should have saved that header 100%. Like, that was just an out and out goalkeeping error. And you know, you can't put a price on that experience being number one. And I know you, Sean, you know, we've not talked about it particularly, but you know, you're a fan of obviously bringing Ramsdale in and putting Nick Pope under a bit of pressure. And I think, again, that's a good decision. Ramsdale, you know, he might be coming in to sit number two. I don't know. I think he's better than Pope, but fundamentally, he brings the experience of being a Premier League number one. Like, he was Arsenal's number one for nearly 2 seasons. Like, he has that experience and he has that presence. And like you say, Nathan, you know, going for a 22, 23-year-old over Martinez, to me, when everybody's screaming out, going, your problem's a goalkeeper. Just like for Arsenal, if you go and your problem's a striker, you know, if everyone's screaming at you going, your problem is, that's when you want to be signing someone who's proven to bring in.
I think it's a massive risk for Man United. And I think they're just going to, you know, I'm not against signing young players, because you know, the youth players are the ones that, or the younger players are the ones who are going to get that longevity. Yes, Emi Martinez is 32, but, you know, we say 32 like it's really old, and it's genuine. It's really not. But what you're getting with an experience, and I'm not just talking about Emi Martinez, I'm talking about any experienced goalkeeper. You've just got that presence. And you know yourself, when you've got that goalkeeper at the back line, you always feel better when they're in the team.
Yeah.
They don't get that with Onana. Man United, I mean, how he's lasted as long as he has as Man United's number one, whether they've had a choice or not. But the number two in particularly great, is he? So, you know, they've got a massive problem there. I've said all along, I don't think the defence is any good, or it's very shaky and very creaky. So it's all well and good spending 250 million quid or however much it was on your front three, when you've got defenders I don't think that are nowhere near good enough for Man United. So,
what has been good to see, though, I think, is seeing that, you know, which didn't really happen last season, is for all it's been we can talk about inflation and spending too much money, but it's nice to see Sunderland, Leeds, Burnley have all invested in their teams, and it seems from some of the results and some of the performances in the first 3 matches that all, ironically, because Leeds won the league, didn't they? I don't really follow Championship football, but ironically, it seems like Burnley and Sunderland have had the more immediate impact, to be fair. Leeds seem to be struggling a bit, but it's nice to see that all 3 of them have given it a real go in investing into the squads and also playing sensible football, unlike
right players, Phil, though, isn't it? Southampton last year and everyone else, they spent a lot of money, but on the wrong players. It seems like there's a bit of a balance with the promoted teams where they seem to have not got it right, because obviously it's still too early to say. But from the opening sort of fixtures, you know, they've all picked up points, and like these players are fitting in quite well. So, you know, it is sort of from a neutral perspective to see like the promoted teams spending the money wisely as well, because, you know, the pressure's going to be like if you don't spend wisely, you go down, then these players are going to be on your books as a championship squad on massive money, and you can't afford to do that. I know Leeds are a bit more savvy. They when they went down last time, they inserted like clauses where they got, you know, reduction in pay, whereas other teams didn't do that. You know, like Leicester and that. So they've got massive players now on big money, and that's what you don't want to happen as a team if you're going down. But you've got to look at, you know, the window overall. Brentford lost arguably two of their best players, not really been replaced, have they, if I'm being honest?
Well, I'm their captain and their manager.
Yeah, that's, you know, they've had a massive hit.
It looks like Palace are going to keep hold of Mark Gahey. The deal's fallen through from what I've seen.
Really bizarre, isn't it? That so like I've read he's had a medical in London, but then Palace wouldn't release him until they signed someone else. Why would you let him go for a medical if you?
Well, the issue is they had a defender lined up. They always said they would never let Gahey go unless they could bring in two other centre backs, and they had two lined up this morning, and they thought both the deals were done, and they'd completed one, and then as he was undergoing the medical, the deal for the second one fell through. So Steve Parish overrode it and went, absolutely not. We've told you he's not coming unless we've signed two centre backs, and we've only signed one. Now, to be fair to Gahey, compared to your Wissers and your Isaks of the world,
he said he can stay.
He always said, I want to go to Liverpool, but I have no problem staying. Like, I've got 1 year left on my contract. I've got no problem playing for you for the last year of my contract. I'm happy doing that, but I would like to go to Liverpool. So he was always open, but he always carried on playing and being professional.
It's a big risk, though, to lose a player like Mark Gahey. I mean, you might see him go in January.
You say that, but if I'm Steve Parish, I'm sat there going, do you know what? Liverpool only pay me 35 million quid, of which I say only, obviously. Again, let's just clear we're in the football bubble here. But if that 35 million quid is the difference between me winning or not winning the Europa Conference League, you know what? I'm spending the 35 million pounds to win the Europa Conference League, because the prestige and the glory that, you know, you two are more obsessed with trophies than I am. Like, you can't put a price on that, can you? So if I'm Steve Parish, do you know what? That could be the difference between us going deep into the Europa Conference League and possibly winning it, and winning Palace's first ever European trophy, which would immortalise Steve Parish at that club. Like,
it would.
I'm him, I'm going, you know what?
I disagree on that. But then you're gonna, like I said,
potentially. You're going in with open eyes, aren't you? You're going in going, do you know what? I've just walked away from 35 million quid. I've walked away from 35, but I potentially bought myself a European trophy.
And that's the risk, isn't it? That's what I would say is, like, I'm not a big fan of players getting into the last year of the contract, because I know he's already said this, but you know he's got, unless something drastically changes at Palace, he's not going to, unless they sell him in January, he's walking away from there come next June, July as a free agent. Then you're Liverpool, then you've gone, well, actually, I've just saved myself 30, because you'll find that there'll be a gentleman's agreement that he'll want to go there, or it'll go, and Liverpool will say, well, I saved us 35 million quid. It's a free transfer.
Yeah, so, and you know, it's all. To be fair, you're right. It's all this buts and risks, isn't it? Like, because if you're Liverpool, you know what looks great today. They might Gahey's risk is he gets the next summer. Liverpool don't want him. Liverpool, I've got someone come to
do his ACL, gets injured. You don't know.
You don't know at all, do you? So it's a risk for Gahey as well. But I think if you're Steve Parish, I think it's the right call. Again, I think the beauty of that situation, to come back on, or touch back on the Isak one, is everybody, pardon the phrase, everybody acted like a grown-up. So Gahey went, I would like the move, but I'm happy to be professional and stay. Steve Parish went, I'd rather you didn't move, but if I can get two centre-backs in, I'll let you go. And Liverpool went, well, whenever you're ready, we've got £35 million on the table, and we're happy to give it to you if it be. So everybody acted like a grown-up. And fundamentally, all that happened is, what Steve Parish said was, well, I said to you could have him if I've got two. I've not got two in, and as a result, that we've not hit the threshold, so I'm keeping him. And so everybody knew what was happening. So I quite like that situation where everyone can actually have a serious conversation like an adult and just go, that's just, and you like to say it's calculated risk by Parish, isn't it? But if he wins that European trophy, then, you know,
just moving on.
He's walking on water in London forever, isn't he?
As anyone else, apart from the people who just mentioned, caught your eye as a transfer, do you think that's gone, oh, actually, that's a good signing?
Panorama for say. Deal close.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I was saying James Trafford. Now you're a bit bemused, aren't you? Because like Man City have just weighed out in excess of 60 million for 2 goalkeepers.
You are, but you've also got the world's best keeper to learn from. You're still young, so you take that opportunity, don't you? And you learn from the best, don't you?
Yeah,
I think with your Trafford, that's exactly. I've got to look at it. I think who was the one that stood out? I don't know mine. And this is old age kicking in for you.
So I think the one for me who I think is going to do really well, and I know his rivals. I think Kudus is going to do quite well at Spurs. That's a good signing.
Grealish to Everton. That's a good signing.
Impressive signing.
Very good. I think Grealish is going to be one.
Getting the young lad from Southampton is not a bad sign for Everton either. I heard something ridiculous back in June. Someone was talking about him, like Southampton want 80, 90 million for him. So for Everton to have picked him up for 40 feels like a really good piece of business with his
one transfer for me that didn't happen, I think was really important for Forest, was keeping Alton Morgan Gibbs-White when they didn't. Obviously, that debacle happened. I think that's like a signing in itself. Yeah, I'd like to thank Mr. Marinakis.
Yeah,
I think that keeping him is equally important because I think he's a very, very good player, Gibbs-White.
That gave me one of the best weeks of the transfer window when Gibbs-White and Eze fell through for Spurs. I was like, Arsenal weren't doing business, but I was dancing on clouds, I tell you.
I think Eze's another one. Again, we're talking Arsenal. Eze, I'd like to see Eze get the involvement that he deserves at Arsenal and sort of be the player that we know he is, because I'd hate. You see it a lot of times when players make that step. I've seen it at Villa where players leave Villa, go to bigger club. Grealish being one of them, doesn't fit into the system properly, can't get going, and then he finds himself on loan at Everton. No disrespect to Everton, I'm just saying that that's the situation he was in, and that's what you want to see with some of the younger players, particularly like Eze, who's literally run the show at Palace for the last couple of years. Getting him into that team and recreating that form is the reason why Arsenal have just paid 60 million quid for him. So
yeah,
it's down to them. So
I think the couple of Chelsea ones have been good, haven't they? I think. I mean, João Pedro scored again at the weekend, didn't he? I mean, he's got
great signing. Yeah,
I mean, he looks like he's going to be absolutely lethal for Chelsea. I saw the lap limped off injured, so that's probably backfired a little bit. But yeah, João Pedro looks good.
I guess we won't really see the rest of the signings now for a couple of weeks. Obviously it's the international break this weekend. England have got a few games.
Do we now the window's over? And I know I'm going to hospital bash you now, Sean, but because I imagine you haven't got the information in front of you, but is there anything any of us are changing in our league predictions off the back of the transfer window now being shut? Does anyone change anything massive in terms of relegated clubs or winning clubs?
No, I'm still sticking to I still think.
I'm changing mine. I'm not going to lie. I'm bumping. I think I'm probably bumping Tottenham up into 5th ahead of Man United. And probably Newcastle staying where they were and bumping Man United down and out.
I think maybe on one of the next shows, then we should go through our thingies again and just to, now the window's closed, just to see what we would change. Then that could be one for discussion. I'm still not changing. I think it's still far too early to judge, even though I've said into another WhatsApp group, I think with Liverpool, 9 points, everyone's like the champions, but it is still quite early to judge to judge the season on 3 games. Yourself, 2 or 3 wins in a row shoots you up the table, or 2 or 3 losses takes you down the table. So it's been very inconsistent again, apart from Liverpool winning all 3 games with teams. There's not one team that has won 3 in a row, 3 games this season except for Liverpool. And again, is that going to be the theme of the season, the inconsistency again, whereas Liverpool sort of steamroll ahead? We hope not, because we want it to be a lot closer for the neutral perspective, in my opinion. So, but yeah, I think it's been some massive money spent in this transfer window. Again, as a neutral, you want to see these players that are massive money come in and see them, sort of perform, and that's what I'd like to see. So
before we close off for the evening, then 3 words sum the transfer window up. Go, Nathan.
Loads of money.
Phil.
Exciting, expensive, and electric.
And mine are glad it's over.
Can I have 6? Because I'd say that as well.
So the window's shut. The dust is settling. Join us again Wednesday. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe, where you'll see we break down the weekend's results and reactions and have some more interesting discussion. My name's Sean. Thanks for listening, joining, watching.
Cheers,
Phil.
See you later, guys. Thank you for watching.
Bye for now. Goodbye.